pine woods were holding their breath that morning, as if the whole land knew something wrong was hanging between the trees. A cold hush settled over the clearing, the kind that made even the birds step back from their own voices. And there, at the center of it all, swinging gently with the breeze, was the young woman folks in the settlement had refused to understand. They hadn't seen her gentleness, or the way she carried herself with quiet pride. They only saw what they wanted to see. They whispered things behind her back, called her half this, half that, as if her blood was a crime and her face a warning. Now, she hung upside down from a heavy pine branch, wrists bound, ankles tied, dress torn from the rough ropes. The dust around her was still rising from the men who had just ridden off, leaving her like some warning sign nailed to a tree. She didn't cry. Maybe she had cried earlier, when they dragged her out of the trail cabin and refused to listen to her. But now her face was set with a strange calm, though every breath pained her ribs. She stared at the pine needles swaying above her head, trying to fight back the dizzy pull of being upside down for so long. The rope cut into her ankles, and her fingers felt numb. The woods around her whispered of old stories, of people who had survived worse things than cruelty. But that didn't ease her fear. She didn't know if anyone would find her in time. A faint crunch of steps on dry needles reached her ears. At first, she thought it was another settler, maybe one of the same men returning to check on her or mock her. She squeezed her eyes shut, bracing herself. But the steps were too soft, too careful, like someone walking with respect for the forest. She heard a low breath, steady and controlled, the kind carried by someone who moved with purpose. When she opened her eyes, she saw a figure standing at the base of the tree. A tall man, strong in build, wrapped in earth-toned cloth and beaded cords. His long black hair was tied loosely behind his shoulders, and his expression was unreadable as he looked up at her. He seemed carved from the same land he stood on, steady and calm, with eyes sharp enough to catch a hawk in flight. A native hunter, she realized, though she didn't know from which band. The settlers feared men like him, but she had always felt something different when she saw folks from the tribes. She felt a strange pull of both worlds, the one she came from and the one that lived in her blood. He didn't speak right away. He just studied the rope, the knots, the bruises on her arms. Then he looked back at her face. She expected anger, confusion, maybe even the same judgment she had seen in the settlement. But instead, he showed a quiet concern that almost broke her. "You hurt?" he asked, voice low and steady. She swallowed hard. Not too bad. I just can't feel my hands." He nodded once, then stepped closer. She saw a knife at his belt, carved bone handle worn smooth. He moved with slow caution, as if making sure she wasn't frightened of him. That alone nearly brought tears to her eyes. After all the shouting and cruelty she had faced, this man who didn't know her was treating her with more care than anyone else had. He placed one hand gently on her shoulder to steady her, then reached for the rope. The knife sliced through the fibers with a soft snap, and her body dropped straight into his arms. He held her weight easily, lowering her to the ground with a gentleness she never expected. Her legs trembled as the blood rushed back, and she winced from the sharp sting traveling through her limbs. "You can sit," he said softly. Helping her lean against the tree trunk, she nodded, clutching the rough bark behind her. Her breaths came shaky, the world spinning just a bit. The hunter knelt beside her and began working at the knots on her wrists, loosening the ropes carefully. She watched him with a mix of fear, gratitude, and something she couldn't quite name. Up close, his expression carried a strength that didn't need words to prove itself. His hands were steady, warm, and patient. "Why? Why did you stop?" she finally whispered. He glanced at the deep grooves in the bark where she had dangled. Saw smoke from far. Rode closer. Heard voices shouting. Did not trust the kind of men who leave a person hanging like this. A weak laugh escaped her, though it hurt her ribs. "They said I didn't belong. Said folks like me bring trouble." He frowned slightly, then shook his head. "You are human. You belong to the land same as anyone. No rope decides your worth." She felt heat rise in her chest at those words. No settler had ever said anything close to that. Most treated her like a burden, a reminder of things they didn't want to think about. This stranger, who owed her nothing, spoke to her like she mattered. He finished untying her wrists, and she brought her hands into her lap, rubbing the sore skin. She could barely meet his eyes. "Thank you, truly. You are safe now," he replied. "But those men may come back. They ride careless but not blind." Her heart jolted. The forest suddenly felt smaller, as if danger was creeping back toward the clearing. She thought of the hateful looks, the rough hands dragging her out. She wasn't ready to face them again. He saw the fear in her eyes. "You should not stay here." She nodded, but her legs were still trembling so badly she couldn't stand. He noticed instantly. Without asking, he placed one strong arm behind her back and lifted her gently to her feet. She steadied herself against him, surprised by the warmth she felt in his presence. Her heart beat faster, for reasons she didn't fully understand. "Can you walk?" he asked. Her voice came out too soft, maybe. "Just a little." He held her there for a moment, studying her face. Then, before she could react, he spoke in a firm tone that made her lift her head. "I will take you with me. Those men will not touch you again." Her breath caught. "Why would you help a stranger?" His eyes softened just slightly, though his voice stayed steady. "You are not stranger now." She didn't know what he meant exactly, but something in his gaze made her trust him. Still, worry tugged at her. Traveling with him meant stepping into a world she didn't fully know. And if the settlers found her with a native hunter, trouble could double itself. He reached for a strip of cloth from his belt and gently wrapped it around the rope burns on her wrists. His touch was careful, almost reverent. As if he refused to let pain linger where he could ease it, she whispered, "If they see us together, they'll think something." He paused, looked straight into her eyes, and spoke with a certainty that left her breathless. "Then let them think. I will tell them you are my wife." The words struck her like a sudden gust of cold wind. Wife, claimed her as wife. He said it without hesitation, without fear, as if it was the simplest answer in the world. Her heart pounded, and she stared at him, unsure what to say. She didn't know if he meant it as protection, as a shield against those who had harmed her, or if there was something deeper he wasn't revealing yet. But before she could speak, a distant sound cut through the air, sharp and unmistakable. Hoofbeats, close enough to shake the ground beneath the pine needles. He turned his head slightly, eyes narrowing. "They are coming back," he murmured, and she felt her breath freeze as the rumble grew louder. Rolling through the forest like a warning, the ground shivered under the weight of the approaching riders, the soft pine needles jumping like tiny insects. She tightened her hold on the hunter's arm without thinking, breath caught halfway in her chest. He didn't pull away. Instead, he shifted just enough to stand between her and the sound, his body angled like a shield. The tension in his shoulders said he already knew what kind of men were coming. Men who believed fear was the quickest way to carve their names into the world. He slowly guided her behind the thick trunk of the pine, keeping her close, but hidden. She leaned into the rough bark, fighting the cold wave rising inside her chest. She wasn't ready to face those men again. She wasn't ready to explain why she was out here, or why her bloodline bothered them so much. The settlers in that part of the land always acted like lines between folks were written in stone. Even though the earth beneath their boots was still young and wild, the hunter crouched low, his gaze fixed on the direction of the sound. His calmness didn't come from carelessness. It came from someone who had lived through enough storms to know panic only feeds danger. His hand drifted close to the knife at his belt, but he didn't grip it yet. He wasn't the sort to rush into a fight before knowing what waited ahead. She could hear the riders break through the tree line, voices sharp and dragging like rusty metal. She recognized one of them right away. The deep growl of his commands always echoed around the settlement, marking every corner of it with his shadow. He had been the first to accuse her, saying her bloodline was a stain on the land. She had tried to tell him that she had never harmed anyone, never broken a single rule. But he wasn't listening that day. He rarely listened at all. The hunter leaned close enough that his whisper brushed her ear. "They come fast. But they do not know you have help." She nodded, though her legs trembled under her. Her heart felt like it would force its way out of her chest. She hated this kind of fear, the kind that reminded her how small she seemed in a world that wasn't built to hold her. "How far are they?" she whispered. "Not far," he murmured. "They follow fresh tracks. They think you crawled away." His eyes lifted to the rope still dangling from the branch. "They do not know someone cut you free." Her chest tightened. That rope hanging there might as well have been a beacon. If they found it before he could lead her away, everything would crash down around them. He studied her face again, taking in the bruises starting to form and the dirt streaks on her cheek. Something softened in his expression, but his jaw stayed firm. He spoke low, steady, like each word was meant to anchor her. "You must trust me now. I take you deeper into the forest. They cannot track me there," she swallowed. "But where will you take me?" "Where you are safe," he answered simply. His certainty made her chest warm, even in fear. It had been a long time since anyone said she was safe. Longer still, since anyone meant it. She wanted to ask him why he cared, why he risked trouble from both the settlers and his own people by helping her. But there wasn't time. The hoofbeats drew closer, pounding harder. Echoing through her ribs, the hunter carefully slid an arm around her waist. "Stay low. Breathe slow. We move when they go past. They must not see you." She nodded again, though her breaths came fast and uneven. He crouched beside her, muscles coiled like a mountain cat ready to leap. Voices cut through the trees. "I told you she's here somewhere. Half-bloods don't get far." Her stomach knotted. She pressed her hand against her lips, choking back a gasp. Another voice answered, rough and impatient. "Then why is she not hanging where we left her?" The hunter's eyes flickered upward, understanding the danger. If they saw the rope cut clean, they'd know someone strong and skilled had interfered. Look for tracks. The leader snapped. Branches snapped and boots thudded against the ground as the men spread out. She heard them pacing circles, kicking brush, dragging their horses in tighter loops. Her heart hammered so loudly she feared they would hear it. She whispered, "They'll find us." The hunter shook his head once. "They see what they want to see, not what is real." His words confused her, but she held on to them anyway, clinging to his calm like a raft in a flood. As the riders searched the clearing, the hunter lowered himself even more, almost blending into the shadows of the tree roots. He motioned for her to do the same. She crawled beside him, using the thick pine trunk to hide her outline. Her legs still stung from the rope burns, but she forced herself not to make a sound. One of the riders stomped closer, mumbling curses under his breath. His boots passed so near she could see the dust clinging to the seams. He grunted and stepped toward the rope. The hunter's hand brushed her arm, warning her not to move. She held her breath as the man tugged at the cut rope. "Clean slice," the rider growled. Someone freed her. The leader snarled. Who in blazes would do that? "Maybe she had help," the rider muttered. The leader spat. "Ain't nobody fool enough to claim her." The hunter's eyes hardened, but he didn't move. She felt something shift inside her at those words. Claim her. The leader's voice twisted it like an insult, while the hunter had spoken it earlier like a promise. The difference between the two struck her heart with strange force. The riders argued a while longer, bickering about tracks and footprints. The hunter whispered for her to stay still, that they would leave soon. She believed him. Somehow, she always believed him. After what felt like ages, the riders finally pulled away from the clearing. Their horses kicked up dust as they headed down the trail, still shouting orders. The hunter waited until the sound faded deeper into the woods before he rose slowly to his feet. "They are not far," he said. "We must move now." She tried to stand, but her legs buckled from the long strain of being upside down. He caught her before she hit the ground, lifting her easily into his arms. She pressed her hands lightly against his chest, shocked by the strength beneath his calm. "I can walk," she whispered. "Later," he said. "Not now." He carried her swiftly through the trees, weaving between the tall trunks as if the forest parted for him alone. The deeper they went, the quieter the land became, till even the birds seemed to watch them pass, with silent curiosity. She finally found her voice. They'll come after me again. They don't stop easy. He nodded. They chase what they fear. You are not weak. Not to them. Not to me. They know this, even if you do not. Her chest tightened. But why do you care so much? You don't even know me. He glanced down at her, eyes steady and unreadable. I know enough. What do you know? She whispered. He walked a few more steps before answering. You have suffered many things alone. You should not suffer more. Someone must stand with you. Her throat tightened. No one had ever spoken to her like that. People usually avoided her or whispered behind her back. She had never known what it felt like for someone to choose to stand at her side. Back there, she said softly, When you said I was your wife, why did you say that? He slowed, his grip tightening slightly around her. Because those men understand only one kind of claim. A woman under a man's protection is harder for them to touch. So you said it only to protect me? His silence lasted just a moment longer than she expected, long enough for her heart to skip. I said it because it was the truth I chose, he replied. Her breath caught. He didn't explain further. Didn't let her ask anything else. He simply moved deeper into the forest, carrying her through a world she had never seen, toward a place where the truth he had chosen waited like a mystery she wasn't ready to face. But danger wasn't done following them. Behind them, faint but growing clearer, came the sharp cry of a horn. The settlers had found their trail, and they were coming. The sharp call of the horn echoed through the forest again. Bouncing off the hills like a warning, the land itself wanted her to hear. The hunter paused only long enough to tilt his head, listening to the wind carry the sound. His jaw tightened. He didn't rush, but there was a new urgency in the way his steps pressed into the earth. She held on to his shoulders, feeling the strength in every stride. His heartbeat was steady, but she could sense the shift in him. The danger was no longer just behind them. It was hunting them. He finally slowed as they reached a thicker part of the woods where the pines grew so close their branches braided together. The light dimmed. Small patches of sun slipped through the needles like thin threads. The air smelled damp and cool, carrying the scent of moss and wild earth. He lowered her gently to the ground, letting her lean against the broad trunk of an old tree. We rest here for a moment, he said. I need to read the land. She nodded, rubbing her wrists. The rope burns still ached, but the cloth he'd wrapped around them made the pain bearable. He crouched a few feet away, touching the ground with his fingertips. She watched him study the tracks and the wind patterns with patience and skill, his movements slow and practiced. How many of them? She asked quietly. He didn't look up. More than before. They called for others. Her chest tightened. Why are they trying so hard to find me? I didn't do anything wrong. He stood and faced her, brushing his hands against his legs. It is not what you did. It is what you are. People fear what they cannot control. She lowered her head. She had heard those words before, whispered by older women who pitied her, but would never dare stand beside her. She had spent her whole life walking a line between two worlds, never fully welcome in either. Her mother had been from the settlement, her father from a tribe across the plains. She remembered their love and how they held her with such tenderness, but after they passed, she became an easy target for bitter tongues. The hunter watched her silently for a moment. He seemed to understand her without needing a long explanation. Maybe that was what frightened her most. No one had ever seen her in this way. You said they fear what they cannot control, she whispered. Do your people think the same? Would they accept someone like me? His expression shifted, a shadow passing behind his eyes. Some will not understand. Some will be cautious. But they will see your strength if you show it. She thought about that, holding on to his words. Then she noticed he kept glancing west, toward the deeper part of the woods. What is out there? She asked. A place where I can take you, he said. But it is far, and the men chasing you know this land too. She lifted herself onto her feet with his help. The moment she stood, her legs shook from exhaustion. He steadied her with a hand on her back. His touch was warm, grounding her when her own strength faltered. Is there nowhere close to hide? She asked. There is one place, he said slowly, but it is not simple. He kept his eyes on the trees ahead, as if weighing a decision. She sensed the conflict in him. It wasn't fear, but caution, the weight of someone who knew more than he was saying. "What place?" she whispered. "My people's ground," he replied. "A small winter shelter not far from here. Empty this season. Safe for now." Her breath caught. Going there meant stepping into his world completely. She didn't know what rules governed that place or what dangers existed beyond the settlers. She only knew he was her only protection, and whatever lay beyond the trees was better than the men behind them. "Will they follow us there?" she asked. "They will try," he said, "but the forest grows thick. Their horses slow. Their eyes blind in this part." "Then we go." He studied her face again, searching her eyes. "You must trust me completely." "I already do," she whispered. He lifted her again without effort, carrying her deeper into the woods. She kept her ear near his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his breathing. She tried not to think of the settlers' voices, of the leader who had looked her in the eyes and told her she didn't belong. Instead, she let her thoughts drift through the shifting silence of the forest. As they moved deeper, the pine forest began to change. The ground turned softer, covered with thick moss. A stream trickled nearby, the water cold and clear. The hunter paused at the edge of a ravine, eyes scanning the land below. "We are close," he said. "What if they catch up?" she asked. "They cannot move as fast as we do here." His gaze sharpened as he listened again to the faraway sounds. "But they are not giving up." She took a deep breath, but fear still anchored itself inside her. "Why do they hate me so much?" "I lived quiet. I hurt no one." "You remind them of the line they fear crossing," he said. "Your life is proof that different worlds can blend. Those who want control fear that truth." His words struck her like stones in water, sending ripples through her chest. She had spent years hiding from who she was, trying to fit into a place that wanted her silenced. But now she saw herself through his eyes, not as a burden, but as something strong enough to stand on its own. He carried her down the slope, toward a cluster of pines forming a natural shelter. The trunks bent inward like protective arms, blocking the sky above. She could see faint marks on one of the trees, carvings done long ago. "This is it," he said. He set her down gently. She looked around, feeling the unusual quiet settle over them. The air here held a different spirit, almost warmer despite the shade. "Your people use this place?" she asked. He nodded. "In colder seasons?" "Before the new territories pushed us farther?" She could hear the sadness in his voice, the history held beneath his calm. She reached out, touching his arm gently. "You lost things too," she whispered. He looked at her surprised. "Yes. Was it because of settlers?" He hesitated, then nodded. "Not all, but enough." She felt his pain as if it belonged to her. Maybe that was why he had helped her. Maybe he saw in her the same longing to belong, the same scars left by others' judgment. He crouched near a patch of earth and brushed aside some leaves. "Sit here. Rest your legs." She lowered herself carefully, grateful for the soft moss beneath her. He pulled out his small water pouch and handed it to her. "Drink slowly," he said. She sipped the cool water, feeling it wash away the dryness in her throat. The hunter settled beside her, close enough that their shoulders brushed. She felt steady again with him near. But the peace didn't last long, eh? A faint crack of a broken branch echoed through the trees. The hunter stiffened immediately. His eyes narrowed, and he rose quietly to his feet. She grabbed his hand before he could step away. "Is it them?" she whispered. "Maybe," he said. "Or maybe someone else." "Someone else," she echoed, confused. He glanced down at her. "This land holds many things. Not just settlers." Chill ran down her spine. "Your tribe?" "No," he said. "They are far from here. But other bands travel sometimes. Some are peaceful, some are not." Fear tightened her throat again. "Would they hurt us?" "Some do not welcome strangers. Especially now, with tensions rising between all sides. They see danger in every shadow. If they see me with you, ... she whispered. His jaw tightened. They will think you are under my protection. But that can mean many things. Good things or bad things. She asked softly, both, he admitted. She swallowed. And if the settlers catch up at the same time? He didn't answer. He didn't need to. Two dangers, coming from two directions. And she was right in the middle of it. He stepped closer to her and spoke in a low, deep whisper. Stay behind me. No matter what happens, another crack sounded, closer this time, followed by the rustle of leaves. Her heart slammed against her ribs. Someone was out there, moving through the trees, watching them, and whoever it was, they were getting closer. The rustling grew sharper, heavier, like footsteps trying to stay quiet but failing against the thick carpet of pine needles. The hunter shifted in front of her, his stance firm and ready, his hand hovering near his knife. She pressed her back against the trunk behind her, breath held tight in her chest. The quiet of the woods no longer felt peaceful. It felt like a trap waiting to spring shut. He didn't move for a long moment, listening. She watched the way his eyes scanned the shadows, how every muscle in his arm stayed tense but controlled. The man who had carried her through the forest now stood as if he belonged to the land, as if the trees themselves trusted him to guard what they held. The sound came again, closer. A branch snapped. She flinched. He gave her a small motion with his hand, telling her not to move. Then he took one careful step forward, positioning himself fully between her and the oncoming presence. The air felt thick, holding its breath along with her. Finally, a figure pushed through the thick brush, stepping into the dim light under the pines. For a moment she thought it was one of the settlers, and her body tensed in fear. But as the stranger moved closer, she saw he wore clothes different from the men who tied her up. His hair was braided with beads, and he carried a bow across his back. His face was stern, lined with age and weather, and his eyes sharp like a hawk's. The hunter didn't relax. If anything, he grew more guarded. The older man stared at him first, then let his gaze fall to her. She felt that look like a weight on her skin, measuring, questioning, trying to place what she was doing here. Her heart pounded so loudly she worried they both could hear it. The hunter spoke first, voice calm but strong. You walk quiet for someone with urgent steps. The older man didn't answer right away. He stepped closer, eyes flicking between them. I walk where I choose, he said bluntly, and I see things I did not expect. The hunter's jaw tightened. This ground is not claimed this season. You know this. That is not the question, the older man replied. His eyes returned to her, studying her face with a stern curiosity that made her spine tighten. The question is why you bring her here. The hunter didn't step back. Because she is under my protection. The older man raised an eyebrow. Your protection? Or something more? Her cheeks burned, though she didn't know why. The hunter didn't flinch at the question. His voice stayed steady. I found her hurt. I will not leave her for wolves to eat. The stranger gave a short breath through his nose. Settlers. Yes, the hunter said. And they chase her still? Yes. The older man crossed his arms. Then you bring danger to this shelter. She brings none, the hunter answered firmly. The danger follows her only because others judge what they do not understand. The stranger studied him for a long moment. Then he sighed, shaking his head. You always walked paths that caused trouble. The hunter did not respond to that. But something in his eyes softened, suggesting he knew this man. Maybe someone from his own people. Maybe someone who once guided him. Then the older man's gaze returned to her. She felt exposed under it, as if he could see all the pain she carried and all the questions she kept buried. She forced herself not to look away. What is your name? He asked. Her throat tightened. I don't know if I should say. You can speak, the hunter said softly, glancing back at her. He listens with truth. She swallowed, still unsure. But the older man didn't seem cruel, just cautious. So she whispered her name, voice barely carrying on the wind. It sounded small, fragile, compared to the weight of the forest around them. The older man nodded slowly. A quiet name. For someone with loud trouble. Her chest tightened. She didn't mean to bring trouble. Trouble just followed her like a shadow she could never outrun. He looked at the hunter again. The settlers will come. They will follow the tracks. This place will not hide you long. You must move. The hunter nodded once. I know. The stranger stepped closer, lowering his voice. There is a hidden trail beyond the ridge. It leads to the old riverbed. No horse can cross it easily. If you move now, you may lose them. The hunter's shoulders eased faintly. Thank you. But listen, the older man said more sharply. Others are near these woods too. A group from the northern band. They are restless, and they do not welcome strangers. If they find you with her— His words trailed off, but the warning was clear. The hunter stiffened, then looked back at her. She felt her stomach twist. Settlers behind them. A rival band ahead, and they were somewhere in the middle. Caught between dangers she'd never imagined she'd face. The older man stepped back into the shadows. Go now. Before the sun drops lower, the hunter nodded, and the stranger disappeared into the woods as silently as he had appeared. He turned to her and offered his hand. We leave now. She slid her fingers into his. Where do we go? A place safer than this? If we reach the ridge before them, we have a chance. She stood with his help. Her legs ached, but she didn't complain. Not now. The weight of fear pressed on her, sure and heavy. But the hunter's hands steadied her. They moved quickly through the trees, keeping low. The forest thickened, branches grabbing at her clothes, catching her hair. The hunter noticed and gently freed her from each snag, careful not to hurt her. As they walked, she whispered, That man. He didn't seem surprised to see me. He sees many things, the hunter replied. He knows the world is changing, she swallowed. Changing how? The hunter didn't answer right away. He guided her over a fallen log, helping her balance. More settlers come each season. More fences. More fights over land. Many tribes stay quiet. Others prepare for conflict. This place we stand on. It holds tension from many sides. She understood then. She wasn't the only one caught between worlds. The whole land felt split, pulling at itself with hands from every direction. The horn sounded again. Closer than before, her breath stuttered. She looked behind her, but only saw trees. They're gaining. She whispered. The hunter picked up speed, pulling her along. We reach the ridge. Then they lose us. The forest began to climb upward. The slope grew steep, forcing her to use her hands to steady herself. Her legs trembled, still weak from the time she spent hanging upside down. She slipped once, but the hunter caught her instantly, pulling her close. I'm slowing you down, she said through shaky breaths. He met her eyes. I would carry you again if needed. The warmth in his voice nearly broke her. She nodded and pressed on. As they climbed higher, the trees thinned, just enough for glimpses of the land below. She could see a small cloud of dust rising near the trail they had come from horses. Men. Anger riding on their heels. We don't have long, she said, voice tight. No, he agreed. The ridge grew closer. The air felt sharper, the wind stronger. Pine needles swirled around them, but before they reached the top, another sound cut through the forest. Not settlers, not horses. A whistle. Sharp and high, the hunter froze. Her pulse jumped. What is that? Signal, he whispered. From the northern band. She felt her knees weaken. Are they close? He nodded once. Very. The woods suddenly felt smaller, boxed in from both ends. She clutched his arm, fear trembling through her body. What do we do? She asked. He looked from the ridge to the deeper woods, calculating, deciding, searching for a path that might save them both. Then he looked at her with an expression she had never seen before. A mix of fierce determination and something gentler, deeper, almost solemn. We keep moving, he said, and whatever happens next, stay behind me. The wind rose, carrying another whistle from one side and the distant shouts of settlers from the other. Two dangers closing in. Only one chance left, and both of them knew it. The wind carried danger from both sides. But the hunter tightened his grip on her hand, as if that alone could steady the ground beneath them. She held on to him, trusting him, even as fear twisted inside her chest. The whistles from the northern band echoed through the trees, sharp and steady, while the shouts of the settlers rose like a storm climbing the ridge. For a moment, she felt caught between two worlds once again, the same way she had been her whole life, torn between the blood she carried and the place she tried. So hard to belong. But this time she wasn't standing alone. The hunter lowered his voice. "Listen, no matter who reaches us first, stay behind me. Do not run. Do not speak unless I tell you." She nodded, though her heart hammered. She watched him step a little ahead, shoulders squared, his stance calm, despite the danger pressing in from every direction. He looked like a man born for moments like this, someone who carried both strength and patience in his bones. The first figures to appear were not the settlers. They were shadows moving between the trees, slipping closer with deliberate steps. The northern band. 3 men stepped into view, painted with earth colors, bows in hand. Their eyes moved from the hunter to her, settling on the way she stood close behind him. Their expressions hardened. One of them spoke in a deep, rough voice. "You walk with a woman not of our people." The hunter didn't flinch. "She is under my protection." "That brings conflict," the man replied, glaring at her as if she had brought the storm herself. Before the hunter could answer, the trees behind them erupted with the sound of snapping branches and pounding hooves. The settlers burst into view far down the slope, rifles raised, their faces twisted with anger. They hadn't reached the ridge yet. They were close enough that she could see the fury in their eyes. The northern warriors turned sharply, recognizing the threat. The leader spat on the ground. "You led them here." The hunter stepped forward, voice firm. "They chased her. She did nothing." The leader clenched his jaw. "Her blood brings trouble." Her chest tightened. She had lived with those words her whole life. But hearing them here, between two groups who both mistrusted what she was, nearly broke her. The hunter didn't allow the insult to settle. He stepped directly between her and the warriors, standing tall and unshaken. "She is part of this land. She has the right to live without being hunted." The warriors exchanged glances. She saw their fingers tighten around their bows, but she also saw hesitation. They were wary, not cruel. Then the hunter lowered his voice, speaking with a level of calm she could barely understand. "If you turn her away now, the settlers will take her. They will bring their anger deeper into these woods. Conflict will grow. Blood will spill. If you let me pass with her, peace will hold." The leader stared at him, searching his face. The silence felt long enough to pull the breath from her lungs. Finally, the warrior exhaled slowly and stepped back. "You walk a difficult path," he said, "but you speak truth. Go." Relief washed over her, so strong her knees almost buckled. The hunter took her hand again and guided her past the band. They watched in stern silence, but didn't stop them. Just as they began to reach the ridge path, the settlers shouted again, their voices sharp and furious. "There!" One of them yelled. "He's got her." She felt the hunter's hand tighten. He didn't turn back. He didn't run either. He guided her with calm certainty, leading her up the narrow path along the ridge. Below, the settlers tried to follow, but the trail was too steep and narrow for their horses. They cursed loudly, firing warning shots into the air. "Come back down here." The leader roared. "She belongs to us." The hunter didn't stop, and she, trembling but determined, didn't look back. The settlers scrambled to climb the ridge on foot, but the loose dirt slid under them. The path crumbled easily. One wrong move, and they would tumble back down. Their shouts grew fainter as she and the hunter reached the top, where the land spread open into rolling hills and thick forest beyond. When they were out of sight, the hunter finally slowed. She leaned against him, breath shaking from fear and exhaustion. He placed a steady hand on her back. "You are safe for now," he said softly. She nodded, letting the truth sink in. For the first time in days, she felt her lungs fill fully. The settlers could not reach them up here, and the northern band had chosen not to fight. For the moment, she had space to breathe. They walked deeper into the hills. the air cooling and the light softening as the sun lowered. They stopped beside a quiet stream where the water ran clear over smooth stones. She sat, dipping her bruised wrists in the cold water. The sting eased, replaced by a slow warmth spreading through her chest. The hunter knelt beside her. "Your strength carried you," he said gently. "Do not forget that." She looked at him, her voice low. "I wouldn't have made it without you." He studied her face, his expression calm, but filled with something deeper. Something she had felt from him since the moment he cut her free. "You are part of this land," he said, "and no one has the right to tear you from it. Not settlers. Not tribes. Not anyone." A soft breath slipped from her. She felt safe with him, not just because he protected her, but because he understood her, truly understood her. She had lived between two worlds her whole life, always feeling like she had no place to stand. But standing beside him, she felt whole for the first time. "What happens now?" she whispered. "I will take you to a quiet valley my people use in late summer," he said. "There are shelters there, food, safety. You can rest, heal, choose your path," she swallowed. "And you? Will you stay?" He looked down at her hands resting near his. Slowly, he reached out and took them gently in his palms. "If you want me to." Her heart thudded softly. "I do." A warm peace settled between them, gentle as evening light. But he didn't rush closer. He let the moment breathe, giving her space to feel the choice as her own. They camped that night under the open sky, stars scattered like small fires across the dark. He built a soft bed of pine boughs for her, then sat close enough to keep watch. She lay there watching him through the flicker of the small fire. His presence soothed her fears more than the warm flames or the safe valley ahead. "Why did you tell those men I was your wife?" she asked, voice quiet under the night. He turned his head toward her, eyes steady. "Because your life deserved protection more powerful than their hatred, and because, in my heart, I already chose you." Her breath caught, warmth rising in her chest. "You didn't even know me then." "I knew enough," he said. "Sometimes the land chooses for us before we understand it." She felt her eyes sting, but this time they were not tears of fear. She reached out a hand, brushing his fingers, then let the land keep choosing. "I'm tired of running. I want a place to belong." He leaned slightly closer, his voice soft but strong. "Then stay. Walk with me. Build a life where no one decides your worth but you." The fire's glow danced between them, warm and steady. She felt the truth settle deep in her bones. She wasn't just escaping danger anymore. She was walking into a future that finally felt like her own. Morning came with soft light and quiet wind. They packed what little they had and headed toward the valley, side by side. No settlers chased them now. No band guarded the path. The land opened gently, welcoming them into a place where she could breathe without fear and stand without shame. And as they walked together hand in hand, she realized something simple but powerful. She wasn't just safe, she was home.